Times are getting tough for Donald Trump, as we are witnessing a rather public crash-out of the US president on social media over the most recent verdict given by federal Judge Boasberg. What's the case, and what was Judge Boasberg's verdict that got Trump so pressed? How does he plan to retaliate? All this, and so much more, in today's video. It all starts with the rather rough and hasty policies regarding immigration that Trump is already notorious for. However, this time things got too out of hand as the US president announced invoking the Alien Enemies Act, which was meant to be used during wartime. For those who don't know, this act gives Trump the authority to deport as many immigrants as he wants without any lawful process or background checks. Needless to say, the announcement was met with a lot of retaliation, as this deportation led several undeserving and law-abiding immigrants to concentration camps in El Salvador, and the lack of a background check or lawful authorization was a clear violation of human rights. As if this weren't bad enough, as we mentioned earlier, this act is meant to be invoked during wartime, and despite hundreds of issues within the United States, war is definitely not one of them. To justify his actions, Trump claims that the individuals targeted for deportation are Venezuelan gang members. But if we consider his other statement about deporting immigrants before a proper background check or lawful authorization, it doesn't make sense. How is the government supposed to know if the immigrants targeted for deportation are gang members or not, if they're not even going to do a background check? In this chaotic situation, Washington, D.C. federal judge Boasberg stood against Trump and issued an injunction against Donald Trump. According to him, the way the Alien Enemies Act was being invoked was unfair and problematic, and he made sure to mention that the government's lawyers had an extremely offensive attitude throughout the entire matter. As expected, this got quite the reaction out of Trump. The reaction was rather publicized as, in a rant on Twitter, the US president said, "This judge is almost as conflicted, actually not even close, as the judge whose daughter made millions of dollars representing Biden-Harris against me, while her father presided over a fake case against me and refused to recuse himself. He should be disbarred. Crooked Alvin Bragg was the DA in the case. They put me under a gag order so that I could not talk about it. Miscarriage of justice." Below this tweet, he'd attached a link to an extremely vague and unreliable article that accused Boasberg of being involved in anti-Trump activities. And how did they come to that conclusion? Apparently, Judge Boasberg had attended a conference in ritzy Sun Valley, where 2 of the 4 sessions were titled "Role of Judges in a Democracy" and "The State of Democracy." A lot of the jury in attendance had a history of being vocal regarding immigration issues. Besides him, 8 Democrat-appointed and 3 Trump-appointed judges were in attendance as well. That's not all, ladies and gentlemen. In another tweet, the president lashed out. This radical left lunatic of a judge, a troublemaker and agitator who was sadly appointed by Barack Hussein Obama, was not elected president. He didn't win the popular vote by a lot. He didn't win all 7 swing states. He didn't win 2,750 to 525 counties. He didn't win anything. I won for many reasons in an overwhelming mandate. But fighting illegal immigration may have been the #1 reason for this historic victory. I'm just doing what the voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I am forced to appear before, should be impeached. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals, many of them deranged murderers in our country. Make America great again. Now, let's take a look at the judge that is being publicly disrespected by the impulsive president. Judge James Jeb Boasberg is one of the most influential judges in American history, as he leads the judges appointed by Trump, Obama, Bush, and even Clinton. Not only that, but he was also appointed as the chief judge of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act by Supreme Court Chief Justice Roberts about 10 years ago, where he dealt with top-secret stuff relevant to Homeland Security, which also involved other countries. Since he has had experience in foreign intelligence, it is obvious he's been involved in legal matters that were related to terrorist deportations and foreigners who were extremist. So, everyone except for Trump, of course, can agree that he clearly has the most experience, credibility, and rightful authority regarding the Alien Enemies Act. Now that we've taken a swift look at Boasberg's resume, let's reconsider the fact. Trump publicly called him conflicted and biased. Of course, he's going to have to face consequences for that. Judge Boasberg is said to be looking into probable causes to hold Trump administration officers in contempt for violating court orders. The MAGA Republicans, on the other hand, have been planning to get the judge impeached. Not only that, they will also be holding hearings in the House of Representatives regarding the Washington, D.C. federal government, as an attempt to defame and attack him publicly. Despite the court deciding against Trump's wishes, the U.S. government continued to send 2 flights full of more than 100 immigrants to concentration camps in El Salvador. During the hearing on Thursday afternoon, Judge Boasberg repeatedly mentioned how he was inclined to, and had no other option but to move forward and hold Donald Trump in contempt for violating court orders. You standing here have no idea who made the decision to not bring the planes back, or have the passengers not be disembarked upon arrival. In response to that, Drew Ensign, the Justice Department attorney, couldn't say much besides stuttering, which irked the judge even more. That's not all, ladies and gentlemen. The back and forth between Ensign and Boasberg even revealed that the government had started the mass deportations before Trump's official announcement of the Alien Enemies Act's invocation. And despite the fact that the court had clearly told the government to halt the flights on 15th of March, their internal decision was to get ahead of the jury and send the flights for the remainder of the month, regardless of the legal issues. But does the government take responsibility for those deportations? Well, according to them, it was an administrative error. Because of this administrative error, several people lost family members, loved ones who were running their houses and paying the bills. For example, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is one of the more than 100 people who have been illegally deported by the Trump administration. And unlike Trump's statements, Garcia had no ties to the Venezuelan gang, but instead had been granted protected legal status from an immigration judge. According to his lawyer, Simon Sandoval Moshenberg, this was the equivalent of a forcible expulsion. ICE officials said Mr. Garcia's deportation was an administrative error and an oversight, but the Department of Homeland Security has still argued that the court does not have jurisdiction to order Mr. Garcia's return because he is in El Salvador's custody. They're coming before this court and saying, "We've tried nothing and we're all out of options." The fact that neither the government lawyer nor the law enforcement authorities have been able to present the documentation that kickstarted Garcia's deportation process tells us there's something much deeper happening that the government clearly doesn't want anyone else to know. Besides Garcia, the government has also wrongfully deported a soccer coach who was in the US as an asylum seeker from the Maduro regime. Needless to say, those deportations are destroying families, and upon being held accountable, Trump does nothing but lash out at the jury. But in response to Trump's demand for Judge Boasberg's impeachment, American Chief Justice John Roberts pushed back. For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. Even though Trump wasn't mentioned by name, it was clear who the statement was directed towards. However, as expected, the U.S. president seemed rather unfazed by Judge Roberts' statement. In an interview with Fox News, he acknowledged the statement.
Well, he didn't mention my name in the statement. I just saw it quickly. He didn't mention my name, but many people have called for his impeachment, the impeachment of this judge.
While answering a question about whether he plans to follow court orders or not, Trump said,
"I never did defy a court order."
And you wouldn't in the future?
No, you can't do that. However, we have bad judges. We have very bad judges, and these are judges that shouldn't be allowed. I think at a certain point you have to start looking at what do you do when you have a rogue judge.
How far do you think this clash between the Trump administration and the judges will go? Trump might have gotten a step ahead of the judges, but it seems like he's going to have to pay the price for it now. Tell us what you think in the comments, and make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and turn on the post notifications so you don't miss any updates.